Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. If somebody, as I'm new to using YouTube Live, if somebody could just type into the comment section that you can hear me, that would give me a little more confidence moving forward, or give me the thumbs up or something like that to give me a clue that I'm coming through. Awesome, thank you. So, well, welcome. I would say welcome to Bangor High School, but it's actually welcome to my backyard. And I thank you for joining us to talk about college planning in the COVID-19 era. I'm sure that lots of people have questions. I know that lots of people have had questions because they've been coming through one at a time, and I thought it would be a good time to actually take a few moments and speak to students and parents to kind of let you in on the idea of how you help make your decisions over the next few months as college approaches. But first of all, I guess I'm going to introduce myself. I am Adam Leach. I'm the Director of Guidance at Bangor High School, for anybody that doesn't know me or I haven't met. And I've been at Bangor High School now for 23 years and been in guidance for 8. And I've seen a lot of kids come through, young men and women heading off to college. And, I definitely see some changes in some decision making this year as a result of the coronavirus and what impact that might have on the future. So first of all, let me just say too, congratulations to all the seniors. I know it's unusual. I know it's been probably a disappointing end to your senior year and end to your high school years, but nevertheless, you've arrived and you're ready to move on to the next level. And great things await you. And I can't wait to hear about as we come through all of this and you move on to the next level and the triumphs and accomplishments that you have as you move on. You've been a wonderful class to work with, and we're all very, very proud of you, especially given the current circumstances. So they said I'm a first-time YouTube Live user, and so just trying to try this out on you a little bit too. It's a little bit of an experiment for me to see if I can find a good platform that's not expensive to the school department to reach out to parents and families and students. So feel free as we go along to post questions. If you have any questions as we're talking, post the questions in the comment section and I will circle back to those. I'll probably go through everything that I want to cover and then come back and answer those questions towards the end. I'm going to try to keep it brief, so less than an hour. And so with that said, I guess I'm going to kind of jump right in. One other thing too. I would say that it's probably a good idea to, if you have a pad of paper and a pen, to jot down some of the things that you think are really relevant to you. Because this is a live event, and though it will be recorded and I will be able to post it online, but I don't think you want to watch me twice. So feel free to take some notes, and that might spur on some questions later on. I have 2 goals. First of all, I want to help students and families plan for your specific situation. And secondly, to help you consider all of the options before you make a decision about your college attendance in the fall. Keeping in mind that there are no 2 situations are the same. So all of you families out there, you're all in a little bit of a different scenario where, depending upon your financial considerations, if you've lost income because of COVID-19, maybe you may have health concerns, pre-existing conditions, and so forth. The location of the college that you're going to, what you're majoring in. Some classes are easier to take in an online or a social distanced environment than others. So a lot of those things may come into your decision-making process. So I'm not necessarily here to give you answers to your particular situation, but I want everything to be on the table for you to consider, so that every stone is turned over, so that you see all of the story as it starts to unfold in the next few weeks and months. So first of all, some general decision making. I found 6 things that I think are really important in your decision making about attending college, if it's on campus, if it's some type of a hybrid online and on campus, or if it's totally online. I wanted to give you some general things to think about overall. First one, and I think is the most important one, is use logic. This is going to be a very emotional roller coaster ride over the next few weeks, and it's very important that the decisions that you make with regard to college are you're being logical about it, and you're considering all of the facts instead of an emotional kind of shoot from the hip type of reactionary decision. Okay, so try to, there's no way to make it not emotional, but try to keep the emotions in check, so that they are the normal emotions that come with graduating from high school, going to college, and so forth. Ask questions, not just of one another within your family, not just with your guidance counselor at your high school, but to lots of people: the admissions office, financial aid office, a student advisor at the university, and your primary care physician. Once you know what the college's plan is that you're going to be going to, if health concerns are a part of that, then talk to somebody that would be an expert in that area, and talk to them. So when I say ask questions of the right people, right? And that'll help you, I think, a lot in your decision making. Also, be patient. Colleges are still trying to figure out what they're going to do in August and September. So give them a little time. You don't have to make your decision today. You don't have to make your decision next week. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in just a minute, but be patient, because there are more decisions to come. They may come in the next few days. I know my son's university is supposed to issue a statement on June 15th about what they're going to do for the fall semester. So don't worry if you have to wait it out for another few weeks. Prepare to be flexible. So as your patient, you're probably saying to yourself, yeah, but we have to make a decision. And so I think being flexible means having a plan A, a plan B, maybe even a plan C and D, based upon what information you're going to get. So be prepared to be flexible. I know everybody has that perfect idea in their mind as to what college is going to be like. So just know that on the outset, it may be a little bit different than what you picture it to be. Stay positive. All things are temporary. This is something that will pass. I don't know how long it will take. I don't think anybody does. But be positive and know that you're going to college to start the next phase of your life. You're going to college to start an education. Those things are going to happen. So be positive, and maybe even try to look for some of the silver lining in the process as well. So we'll talk more about that as we go through. Lastly, I think I'm really happy that there is a mixture of seniors and parents, and I'm hoping that within the rooms of where this is playing right now, that moms and dads and students are all sitting together, listening to this, and maybe talking in the background. I guess that's one of the nice things about doing this on YouTube. If we were live and in person and everybody was chatting while I was talking, it would be hard. But this kind of allows you some freedom to do that. So go ahead and have some of those conversations while I'm talking. But remember that it's important for parents and the student to work together. The student, you are a young adult. this is your education. This is not your parents' education. This is your education. You are going to have to be the leader in this. This is a far more, for lack of a better way of putting it, a far more grown-up decision than maybe you were prepared to make, but this is your decision. It's about your future. So you have to kind of take charge with that. But also, mom and dad's opinion counts in more ways than one, right? They know you better than any other people on the planet. They may be paying the bill for your education. So they have a right to have input. So it's so important that families work together in the decision making. Okay, I'm going to start by jumping in to some specifics about the planning for your education. I guess I would say do this first, right? Start with your long-term plan. Start with the end in mind. We told you that when you came in as 8th graders and as freshmen at Bangor High School. We told you that we want to start with the plan of moving you on after high school. We started thinking about that for you guys 4 years ago. You have to start that process all over again. So whether you are in a certificate program that is a 1-year plan, if you are in a 2-year college or a 4-year college, or you have aspirations of law school or medical school or some type of graduate program, be thinking about what that is going to look like when you're done, and then work backwards from there. And when do you want to be at that point? That's a really important question to have. So start with your long-term plan in mind. Always keep that in focus. Where do you want to be, say, 5 years from now? Regardless of COVID-19 or anything else, where do you want to be in 5 years? That might help make your decision about what to do in the next 5 months a little more logical and a little bit more informed. So in other words, don't just consider what you're going to do in September. Don't make it that emotional decision where you say, "Oh, this is crazy. I'm not going to go to college and pay a bunch of money just to take online courses." I'm going to talk more about online courses in just a second, but those courses, whether you want to take online courses or not, may be useful in helping you still to be able to realize your plan, your long-term plan for 4, 5, 6 years down the road. So how you approach what you do for the fall 2020 semester, it might be better to frame it as a question of, how does whatever I do keep me on track for achieving my goals that I want to be at in a few years? I also want you to, and I've said this to some students before, maybe some of the ones watching tonight, but don't think about what you're not going to do. Think about what you're going to do instead, right? And that can be anything from saying, well, I'm going to go to college regardless of the situation in September. You may be thinking about alternative options other than going to school, but don't just get yourself into a position of talking about what you're not going to do. Think about what you are going to fill your time with in the event that you don't go to college in the fall. Okay. Things like you can say, well, I'm going to get a job. Okay, now's the time to get on that decision and see if you can find one. The employment situation is not good. So the jobs for teenagers or recent high school graduates may be drying up, and you might not have an option. So be careful to say, well, I'm not going to college. What are you going to do in its place? That helps keep you on track for your plan down the road. So you base your decisions on how to stay as close to your 5-year plan as possible. You want to keep yourself safe, but you also want to keep yourself moving forward. You don't want to get stuck in a rut. You don't want to lose time, lose effort. And so what's going to be the decision where you can stay on track and keep yourself safe? and balancing out those two things. I mean, society right now is trying to figure that out, right? So they are looking at how to reopen the economy and keep people safe. You're fully in that boat as well. You want to keep moving forward. You want to stay making progress, but you want to be safe too. So, think big picture a little bit more like that. So the first step is to keep all your options open. To say, where do I start in the decision-making process? Keep every option you've got open until the last minute. So if you're in your mind thinking, well, I'm going to take a semester off, all right, we'll talk about that decision process in a second. But it's important that if you decide to do that, still put in a deposit to the college that you've been accepted to and that you've chosen to attend. Still make plans to attend college so that you have multiple options. As we said, there's so many things about this virus that we just don't know. We have best case scenarios, we have worst case scenarios floating around, and it could go either way. So that's what I was talking about at the beginning when I said be flexible, keep your options open. Don't throw them away right now. Make sure that you still pursue a plan A, a plan B, and maybe even more than that. So put your deposit down for your university if you haven't already. Hold on to your spot. If your plan was to live in a dorm, still sign up for that. In the worst case scenario, what you would be losing out if at the last minute you decide not to go to college, you would just be losing out on the amount of money that was tied up in the deposit. And even with that said, there are many colleges that would honor a decision to back out and may refund a deposit if it's made based on the COVID-19 situation. If you're deferring to another semester, you're still going to have to put down that deposit to hold your spot either for the spring of 2021 or the fall of 2021. So continue as planned with your college attendance, and then you can work on those other plans as well. The next big, really important question is did your family income change due to COVID-19? If you've lost a job, if your income is drastically reduced, the first thing that you need to do is to contact the financial aid office at your university and find out what their steps are in making a financial aid appeal. So under normal circumstances, when you're awarded your financial aid, like most of you were, hopefully all of you were, then you would need to, you would have gotten those decisions several months ago before any of this was really starting to boil up. So you got a financial aid decision without consideration of COVID-19. So under normal circumstances, if somebody were to lose their job or to have a really bad year financially, you can still make an appeal because your financial aid is based on last year's tax returns. And so you have a chance to be able to make those changes. You make those changes directly with the university. You don't go back to your FAFSA form. You don't have to go in and fill that out again. That will not be of any use to you. But what you do is you call the financial aid office and you find out about making a financial aid appeal because your financial considerations have changed. I would recommend doing that even if it's a slight change because you just don't know if that slight change is something that's going to last 4 or 5 months or if it could last well into the next year. So don't miss the chance to make a financial aid appeal if your income has been affected. Something else to consider too, some people are saying, well, maybe it's better I don't go to college now because we're having some difficulty financially. Always remember that college is going to be more expensive next year than it is right now. So the sooner you start, the cheaper college will be. And if you delay that, a lot of students, for example, will tell me that they're going to take a year off and get a job and save money for college. what a lot of those students end up finding out is that the amount of money that they saved really only covers the difference in cost from one year to the next. So it's really important that you stop and think about um, how much extra it's going to cost you if you delay attendance for a year. Uh, the cost of higher education sometimes goes up 8 to 10% a year, and you may not be able to save enough money in a year to make up for that. So the sooner you start, the cheaper it will be. So that will give you the opportunity to explore all financial aid options before changing your plans to attend in the fall. So start with that financial aid office at your university if you want to talk about changes in your income. You can also use resources such as the Finance Authority of Maine. So if you go to famemaine.com, you'll be able to get connected with some wonderful people that will be able to help you with your very specific financial situation with going to college. All right, so now the different options. What if college goes with an online option in the fall? You have really a couple of choices as to what you can do if your university says we're not reopening campus. All of our courses are going to be just online. This kind of sounds disappointing, and it is, right? It's not necessarily a great option, but think about what I said. It's going to be cheaper to start sooner. You can get going and stay moving, continue to make progress moving forward. And you'll be able to stay on track with your 5-year plan. And there's also there's some things to consider when saying, okay, I'm gonna go to college and take the online courses. There's some things to consider. The first and most important one is, how do you think you're going to do with that environment? Like, for example, what are your study habits at home? Do you have a study space? Do you have a study time? Do you have privacy? Do you have access to the internet? Do you have brothers and sisters that are competing for your time online? So your remote learning environment is something that's really important to consider. And over the last few weeks, you've had an opportunity to explore that. So you know the answer to that question better than most normally would. The other thing to consider about remote learning in college in the fall is it's not going to be anything like what you are currently doing for Bangor High School. It's important to know that Bangor High School had to transition to remote learning on the fly. We never intended to be an online program. And so, but the university has had time to prepare, and many of them have online learning platforms all ready to go, and they're already using them. So you're going to be in classes where your attendance will still be required, where you'll be required to do a certain amount of work. Your work will be graded. And so it's not going to be one of these pass-fail, preponderance of the evidence kind of things when it comes to your grades. So be prepared for that. Something else to consider is, I don't necessarily like online learning. It's not nearly as good as in-person learning. However, we can't change the circumstances that we're in. We have to play the cards we're dealt, as they say. And so can you put up with that for a semester or a year? If you can look at it and say, well, it's not the best thing, it's not what I want to do, but for now, okay, I can do that. And that's part of keeping a positive attitude. Well, it's temporary, and hopefully it won't last more than a semester or two. So can you do it, and can you handle it, and can you keep yourself focused? If you're a good self-disciplined learner and you've got the environment at home to work, then you should be fine. Also, some classes are better suited to online than others. So if you're going to continue with the plan of going to college, look for those courses first when you sign up for classes. Lecture-based courses, look at what I'm doing right now. This could be a session at a college where the person is talking to you and you're listening and you're taking notes, and the things that I say are going to be on the test and so forth. So those are courses that are easily translated into an online environment. Something that has a lab or is very experiential, probably those are the classes that you would stay away from. Keep in mind that virtually every college is going to have a general education set of requirements. Those are courses that are generally packed full of ninth graders, right? Freshmen, and at larger universities, some of those sections can get extremely large. A general psychology class at a major university might have 200 or 300 people in the class, and it's very unpersonal. It's very you don't have as much chance to ask questions and be engaged in the learning. It's listen and take the test. That's the kind of class that you could go ahead and take online, and you really are not going to notice a huge difference. But those classes that are field classes, or maybe you want to challenge yourself with a higher level class right out of the gate, maybe those can wait a semester and get some of those tedious classes that maybe you just don't like as much. They don't fit your interests, or that fit the online learning experience a little bit better. So take those gen ed classes early, straight lecture-based classes. And this is where it depends on your major. Maybe a bio major or an engineering major might have a harder time finding classes in their major right out of the gate, but you're still going to have to take those gen eds as well. So take some of those things and get them out of the way. So you can really, you can still go to the university, even if it's totally online. You can keep yourself making progress. In terms of how much is college going to cost, believe it or not, if they go to a straight online version, you're going to save money because you're not going to be paying for room and board. You're not necessarily going to be paying for travel. So the thought process behind saying I'm going to pay a lot of money to take online courses, I don't want to do that. The end result is probably going to be a greatly reduced bill if you're taking the online courses when you consider the total cost of education all at once. So look at that. Okay. If you took a lot of AP or dual enrollment classes while you're in high school, you may find it a little more difficult to find gen ed requirements that you haven't already fulfilled. So take a look at what credits you're going to be carrying forward into college from high school. And this is where you can talk to a college advisor, or you could talk to somebody in admissions that can help you sort out some of those courses that might be more easily transferable to an online environment. All right. Option 2, instead of going to college, you can defer your enrollment. You can notify admissions that you want to accept your admissions to still plan to attend college, just not yet. So you can defer 1 semester or 1 year. If you want to go longer, you would have to reapply for the deferment, but you can postpone the beginning of your enrollment. While you do that, you could still take classes maybe at a lower cost college. For example, if you're going to Boston College is expensive. So you defer and maybe pick up some classes at Eastern Maine Community College, which are going to be far less expensive while you wait. That might be a way for you to continue to make progress, but not pay quite as large a tuition bill. It's important to know that if you're going to look at some of those online options or lower cost universities while you're deferred or while you're not going to college, make sure that they're reputable. Make sure it's a you're better off to avoid the for-profit universities, the strictly online universities. I would recommend, if you were going to give up a semester for going to, Boston or New York or Washington or wherever you're going off to go to school, I would recommend the UMaine, Eastern Maine Community College, UMaine Augusta campus. Those options would probably be the best ones for you. Watch out for scams, overpriced for-profit online universities. Be careful in what you look for those alternative options. Also, make sure your credits will transfer. So not all universities are the same in their acceptance of transfer credits. I'm assuming, I'm assuming all universities will be a little more lenient in their transfer credit policies this year, but I know for a fact some of them are going to be much more lenient. But with that said, you should talk to the universities, let them know what classes you're planning on taking online during your semester off, and make sure that those will transfer and will be applicable to your degree plan when you do go to college. It would be a shame for you to defer, take some classes locally, and then have them not transfer. So be careful that you don't get into a situation like that. All of that can be solved by keeping an open line of communication with the university where you plan to attend eventually. So if you're going to defer your enrollment, you want to make sure that it is done only after a conversation with admissions. And you would want to stay in contact with them to make sure transfer credits and all that will be taken care of. If you're going to defer, are you going to get a job as well? That's another really important consideration. I'll talk a little bit more about that with gap year. But, as I said, deferring means that you're going to start college later. And what are you going to do to fill the gap? What are you going to do in the meantime? And you're going to want to make sure that you have a job. Be careful about falling into the trap of saying things like, oh, I'm going to get a job. I hope so, but make sure that you've got one, and make sure you've got one that's going to be pretty reliable, where you're going to get some hours and be able to save some money towards the next year. Okay, what if, I'm going to keep moving right along. What if your university goes with an in-person, they're going to reopen as normal? What if your university says, we're opening classes, we're going to bring students back to the campus? What do you do then? You may be thinking more along the lines of, oh, but does that keep me safe? So again, you have the option to attend and you have the option to defer. If you plan to attend, can you commute? Right? This is not as serious a question if your plan was to commute anyway. If you were going to go to Husson and you plan to commute anyway, live at home, save some money, not have to pay room and board, that might make your decision a little bit easier. The only social distancing challenge that you might find is going to be in the classroom. You're not going to be faced with roommates and dining halls and things like that. So social distancing could be relatively easy. So if your plan is to attend and you're going to a university locally, commuting might be a helpful way to help keep yourself safe. My two biggest concerns, and this is where you have to pay attention to the universities that you're planning to attend, because they're all going to do it slightly differently, is what is their plan for the dining hall? What is their plan for dorms? Because that's where you're going to have the most people in closer contact with one another. There are ample solutions to help keeping the classroom social distance. But my bigger concern, and the concern that has gone mostly unanswered to this point, is dorms and dining situations. Travel to and from. If you're going to commute, do you have reliable transportation? weigh those decisions. If you start getting beyond the University of Maine, that radius of distance, then the value of your social distancing, the value of your safety starts to decline. We do have winter, and I always ask families to consider, oh yes, if you're going to commute, how far are you commuting, and what is the safety of that commute to and from university. Get to know the strategy of the university. I think what we're going to start to see is we're going to start to see a lot of universities going to what they call a hybrid plan, where some of their courses are being offered online, some of their courses are being offered in person. They may add on multiple sections of a particular class so they can reduce the size of the class, the number of the students in there at one time. They may go with alternating days. They may say, if you're they might have group A and group B, or group A, B, and C. If it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, maybe you only go to class one day a week and you join online for the other two. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen for a lot of places. They're going to have some form of a what we call hybrid. And so get to know the strategy of that university before you make a decision to attend or not attend. And that's why I say be patient, because those decisions are still to come for most universities, and what that actual plan will look like. That's also where you can ask a lot of questions. Feel free to contact an admissions office and find out what is going to be the strategy. You might even, within your major, contact a department head of your particular major and talk to them about what their classrooms are going to look like, their laboratories, all of those kinds of things. So know the strategy of the university. That's really, really important. Also, talk to their health facilities, and what are their health plans in the event that there's an outbreak. Now, every university has some kind of contingency plan for a health emergency. The common cold, the flu, meningitis, they have plans for all kinds of different things that could happen from a health perspective on a university. So they should be relatively adaptable to this, but it's also helpful to know what their plan is. As we sit here today, there is no vaccine, so they can't have a health shot records to ensure that you're not going to transmit the disease to somebody else. But they do have other plans, and get to know what that plan is. Option 2 is just like with if you choose not to attend, you can defer to another semester and follow those other plans that I've already talked about. What are you going to do while you're deferred and you have this empty period of time? I have four-wheelers and things driving around the house right now, so I apologize if there's background noise. That happens at school too. Sometimes the lawnmower is outside my window. So what about a gap year? This is kind of that third choice. It's to attend or not attend. What are you going to do with that year off? A gap year is not just simply not going to college. There's two big reasons why people usually take gap years. And number one is to get an alternative education experience that usually involves travel. That's just not the option right now. So the only other reason why somebody might take a gap year would be to save money. So again, if you're going to take a gap year, it is so important that you know what you're going to do during that gap year. Please do not say, I'm going to stay home for a while, figure it out later. Have plans. Have 2 or 3 different plans, and try to make sure that your gap year is productive. Remember, 5-year plan, you've got to do something that keeps you moving forward. And if you're moving forward, then you're going to, it'll be worthwhile. So again, gap years are not the same as a year off. You have to have something that's going to take the place of going to college, get a job if there are any available. Will you be able to save money with the job that you get? That's something else to consider. Without travel options, the alternative learning experiences, things like that, are at a minimum. So if you can't find anything to do in your gap year, then that kind of, in my mind, pushes you back to the idea of going to college, whether it's online or in person. Those really are the options. I'm going to pause for a second now and see if anybody wants to ask any questions. Again, feel free to put those just in the comment section, and they should pop up for me. If there's any particular scenario that you want me to address. I guess I would say this. I mean, if I were in your shoes, I would much rather be a rising college freshman and have this scenario thrust upon me than to be a college junior or a high school junior, for that matter. Imagine where you were a year ago, high school juniors doing the college searches, visiting campuses and things like that. You know, your friends that are a year behind you, their challenge is a little bit greater than yours. Also, the students that are in college that have already taken their gen eds and have already, kind of done the due diligence of knocking off those things that are less interesting or less challenging. They have a little bit less flexibility in the classes that they are taking at the university. I have a son that is a college senior, and he's going to graduate from college in December, actually, a semester early. He's asked all of the same questions that I'm sure all of you are asking. What do we do in terms of do we take the semester off and graduate in the spring, or all of those sorts of things? His plan is still to continue as normal, as much as he can. I'm not seeing any questions popping up, but I do want to let you know that you can reach out to me at Bangor High School. You can email me at aleach@bangorschools.net. That's ALEACH @bangorschools.net. And if a question pops up in your mind, please reach out to me, and I can help you out the best that I can, or at least point you in the right direction. I know a lot of the people in the universities, certainly the local ones, and I can put you into contact with people that can best help you with your specific situation. Feel free to also connect with your school counselor. If I'm not your counselor, you can connect with them. Either Mrs. Eyre or Mr. Clement have most of you as their students. So you can also reach out to them and have a conversation. If you would like to Zoom one-on-one and have a conversation one-on-one, I can do that with you as well. And so can the other counselors. If you have any real questions and you want to really work out your situation as best you can. So I'm not seeing any questions popping up. So hopefully I was thorough and answered some of your burning questions. But I guess I will leave you with this. I'd go back to those comments that I made at the beginning where I said, please use logic. At a risk of sounding a little political, I think it needs to be said that regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, there is a lot of panic, right, about what can be done. And try not to panic. Try to sift through all of that. Be patient. Stay in communication. The more questions you ask, the better off you're going to be. You'll be armed with more fact, and try to keep that decision as logical as possible moving forward. As I said, I think this is a very temporary situation. I think you're going to come out of this just fine. It's just not going to be as perfect and well designed as maybe you had hoped. But with that said, I have great confidence in all of you. You've all done so well, in Bangor High School, and I know that that will continue with whatever it is. I hope everybody is staying safe. I hope everybody is staying happy. I hope you're all finding ways um, to deal with the changes of what is normal, and that you find some joy in the nice weather that has arrived. And I hope all of you take care. So thank you so much for joining, and I look to see all of you again very, very soon. Take great care. Good night.